people today at, oh, sorry. So all of the people today at Nagoya, Toyohashi, and Gifu JALT, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very honored to have been invited as today's plenary speaker. And also, I'd really like to recognize your efforts towards diversity, equity, and inclusion that you have shown. I think it's really resulted in a diverse mixture of presenters and topics today. And so I'd really like to encourage all organizations and chapters and SIGs to take a similar approach whenever you're holding an event like this and also inviting speakers. So with that said, let me just give you one question to start off your Sunday morning with. And that first question is, are we a community? Right now, we are a community of people who have decided to spend our Sunday morning engaging in learning and teaching. So second question for you is, what is a community exactly? So today I'll talk to you about two frameworks for communities, my own journey through this particular community, and also my vision for the future of the community. So please keep these questions in mind as we're going through today's presentation. First, the two frameworks that I'd like to talk about today. The first one is discourse community. And a lot of my own doctoral research and my own research at my job is looking at what is a discourse community and how does it operate. And then second, you may be familiar with community of practice. It's actually one of the themes of this year's international conference as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about the criteria of discourse communities. Typically, discourse communities must have some kind of common goal. I think our goal is to teach and learn simply. Of course, we have many other kinds of goals, and we also each have our own individual goals, but that's something that all discourse communities have in common. They have goals. Second, we must have different ways to communicate. We use email, of course, social media, text messages, and meetings like this. We also must have participatory mechanisms. So these are ways that we can disseminate information and also get feedback and get reactions from the community. So I would say that the Grand Forum today is a really good example of a participatory mechanism. So today the speakers are going to give some information and we'll listen and then we'll give our feedback. Communities must also use particular genres. For us in JALT, we usually have newsletters. We have things like academic journals, presentations like this, and today we also have a MyShare. So we use genres that are specific to our community. We also must have a shared lexis or vocabulary. That these are kinds of words in common that we know the meanings of, or we learn the meanings of, and we use those words to communicate. So for example, maybe you'll hear people talking about EMI, English as a medium of instruction, or CLIL, or learner autonomy. So we use these words to talk together. And then finally, we have some kind of structure. We're not free for all. We have to have some kind of structure or organization, and also we have to have suitable people to staff that structure and organization. So these are the 6 criteria of a community, a discourse community. So you can think, do we as JALT fulfill all of these criteria? And I would like to say, yes, we do. Secondly, and next, I'll talk to you about community of practice. This framework, which you might have heard about already, revolves around membership in a community and what it means to be a member, and how we are members and how we enact and embody membership. So first, it's formed by people who are learning something together. We are collectively learning, and I would say teaching as well. Second, communities of practice are predicated on the idea that people improve themselves, people improve their knowledge, improve their teaching and learning through interaction, that community is inherently a very social thing. And third, this concept of community of practice describes also how people join the community. Specifically, how do people enter, how do they stay active, and eventually how do they exit? One concept that they didn't mention is enjoy community. So I would like to go ahead and also add that: enter, join, participate, enjoy, and exit. So next, I'll show you an actual image of what the community of practice looks like. So this is directly from Wenger. So you might be able to situate your own membership somewhere on this graphic. Are you an outsider? Are you a prospective member? Are you a sponsor? Today we have Pearson kindly joining us as a sponsor. Are you a beginner? Are you what on the internet people commonly call lurkers, people who might read posts or read websites, but they don't comment or they don't make their own posts? Are you an expert? Maybe you're a subject matter expert, or maybe you're an expert in teaching. Are you part of the core group? Do you want to be part of the core group? Or are you an occasional or peripheral member? So you can think about your own membership in these terms. Next, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my own journey through JALT and explain these terms through my own journey. So of course, I started out as a non-member. I didn't know what JALT was. Later, I learned about it through my graduate school education, and I became a member. Next, I came to be more involved. I became a proofreader and reviewer for abstracts, for conferences, for The Language Teacher, which is one of our publications. I also became a tutor for the Writers' Peer Support Group. And that's a group which helps people who are trying to publish, typically in JALT publications, but it could be anywhere. And I eventually became an external coordinator of the Writers' Peer Support Group. And this actually was a self-initiated position. It did not exist before I decided that it needed to exist. I noticed that even though the peer support group worked fine by itself, and we had an internal coordinator to really organize what was going on inside the group, we didn't have someone who could represent our interests to either JALT leadership or the larger JALT community. So I felt that there was a need for this kind of position because people didn't know that we existed, didn't know who we were or what we did. So I went ahead and decided we need this. So I'm going to make this position and I'm going to do this. And I'm still the external coordinator as of right now. Next, I was invited to become the vocab SIG grants co-chair, which I did for several years. And then later on, the Tokyo vice president and president. And currently, I'm the Nagano chapter president. And as Jackson mentioned, I am president-elect, so I will become president in January 2021. So not yet, but coming soon. But just to frame my own journey within the lens of communities of practice, basically Lehman Wenger would call me a transactional member to start. I wasn't a member. Then I became a peripheral member, or what they might call a legitimate peripheral member, in that I was observing the actions of the group, of the organization, and I might occasionally join in, but then I became an occasional member, and I did become more active, and then became a leader. And finally, in the future, I may become a core member. Today, I'd like to put these terms into this kind of shared lexis or shared vocabulary so that I can talk to you about today's main point about community building. In that today, I think even with us in the Grand Forum today, we have prospective members, so people who are not members of JALT yet. We also have novice members or people who may have just joined, emerging members, so people who are becoming more active. And finally, we have experienced members, people who have maybe done several roles inside JALT, whether that's SIG or chapter leadership or on the national board. And then finally, veteran members. And these are people who may have experienced JALT for decades or may have moved in within a bunch of different positions. So today I'm going to use this shared lexis in order to talk about the future of our community and what we should be doing going forward. So basically, instead of having one overarching or kind of one size fits all approach to membership, and today, whenever I say member, I don't actually mean a member of JALT in that you have signed up for JALT and you have paid your dues, although I also really encourage you to do that. And even in the chat, I think I can drop a link. This is how to join JALT if you are interested in joining. But whenever I say member, I mean a member of the community. So instead of having this one size fits all approach to membership in that once you join as this community as a member, you can do a variety of things, but there's kind of no set pathway and it's a free-for-all. I think we should be supporting our members in different ways according to their experience and according to their different experience levels. So first, and perhaps most pressingly, we need to attract and retain new recruits to the organization. without new members and with a rate of attrition, we need new members in order to continue our mission. So this is absolutely vital. And I think this is one of the most discussed aspects of any organization. How do we have new members coming in? Second, I think we need to welcome and inaugurate novice members. What happens whenever you join a community? Do you simply get a welcome to this community email and then it's done? Or do you have some kind of formal orientation or recognition inside the community? So I think that we can't assume that all new or novice members will know how to best take advantage of their membership. And also having a cohort model is much friendlier and more welcoming and more community building. Third, I think we need to mentor emerging members. Having a formal program and having them shadow more experienced members would allow more people to transition from emerging to experienced members. Fourth, we need to support our experienced members in their transfer of knowledge to the new and emerging members, and also to support them in their most likely increasingly leadership roles. And then finally, we should encourage the veteran members to start their own initiatives and to leverage their own knowledge and contacts in order to represent JALT externally and also cultivate cross-cultural and cross-organizational connections. So just to summarize, here are the things that I'm proposing. That whenever we are encountering prospective members, we meet them where they are and see what they need to do. And we offer entry-level offerings, perhaps like today's Grand Forum. It's open to everyone, anyone can join. There are a few barriers to entry. But I think that people can be a little bit intimidated. So I think we really need to consciously cultivate and personally invite people to join our community. Personal invitations go a long way, I think, in joining communities. Secondly, for novice members, we should also be, as I said, deliberate in welcoming and orienting them. So we should be mentioning them at meetings, in the newsletter, on social media, and recognizing them as new members. This forms a community of practice so that these novice members can learn from each other and support each other throughout their professional journey. Then also for the next categories, I think that there's significant overlap in the categories because I think that it's entirely possible to be an emerging member in one area, but also be really experienced in another area. So I think for emerging and experienced members, we have a need for formal systematic mentoring. How do you be a chair? How do you become president? How do you do these things? And also we need to have regular check-ins to make sure that people are on track to reach their desired goals. So that also includes guidance for people who are emerging, but also support for experienced members to teach other people. So instead of the experienced members being the doer of responsibilities, they become a teacher of responsibilities. And then finally, we come to our experienced and veteran members. And these are people who, as I said before, may have been in JALT for decades or who have acted as an officer for decades. So they have a lot of institutional knowledge. And we need to make sure that that institutional knowledge gets passed along. So we have to help our experienced and veteran members develop new skill sets in order to help them orient our prospective new and emerging members. And then also we would have to ask them to document and help us preserve this institutional knowledge. And in true circle of life fashion, it would also be good for them to be mentored by other members in areas that they want to gain more experience in. And that could be social media use or technology, new trends in teaching and learning. But essentially what it comes down to is that for a community of practice, everyone in the community should be and learning something from someone else. So having said all that, I just want to ask you again, what is a community? After hearing the frameworks, after hearing my own personal journey through the community, and after hearing my vision for the future of this community, what is a community? And I'd like to end with a call to action. How can you help build this community? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. The last wording, learning from someone, is a totally touched, totally agreed for me. Thank you very much, Dawn. Yes. So we are going to my share session. So as I send